All right, guys, welcome back to Nebraska Hawks Nest. I am joined today by Iowa Hawkeye basketball legend, whether he likes to admit it or not, Greg Brunner. How's it going, man?
Not too bad, not too bad. The legend of my name kind of fell off a while ago, so I'm an afterthought. I'm getting old. I'm almost 5 years out, or five full groups out now. So that's crazy to think about.
Hasn't anyone ever told you legends never die? Come on. Hey,
Well,
guys.
I guess that is true. I was the one balding at 21, so it's one of those things. The two things I'm known for is being bald at 20, 21, and that the continuous fight on the internet of actually how tall I am. So,
Hey, man, I saw Tim Dwight run in high school. He was 18 and already bald, completely receding. It just happens when it happens, and you just got to roll with it. At least you got a decent shaped head. Like I got a fat noggin, so if I was to lose my hair, I'd be in a bad way. So you're sitting okay. And guys, just wanted to say, give us a like and subscribe to the channel while you think about it, so we can get you get alerts on all the Hawkeye interviews that we're doing. Greg, thanks for joining us. We always like to start out in the beginning. Tell us as much as you can about your recruiting process out of high school. What schools were you really looking hard at? Was Iowa pretty much like, hey, this is where I'm going right away, I'm a Hawkeye? Or, did you give some other schools some consideration?
Yeah, I was kind of weird. So honestly, if you take the path about, like, for me, I went to Future Stars camp as a freshman going into my freshman year, and I was maybe 6'4", 180 pounds, and couldn't even step on the floor. Right, I got abused. It was one of those embarrassing things. And then I graduated 6'7", 260. So that's a big turnaround in high school, right? And and part of that process was it was a maturity aspect of it. So then I slowly started to progress. Had a really good freshman year. Played freshman AAU, and then started playing with Martin Brothers and started getting out in front of a lot of people. And my sophomore year is when it really started to pick up. I played at UNI. I think Creighton was there as a high school team camp, and UNI had no idea who I was, and I lived 35 minutes away, right? Mm-hmm. And after that team camp, I got an offer right there. And then like Creighton, Drake, some of the Missouri Valley conferences, immediately there was offers on the table. About going into my sophomore year, I played at that Future Stars camp again and played really well. And then middle of my sophomore year, I had an offer from Wisconsin. And that was a Brad Soderberg offer. And he was a mover blocker system. And I didn't really know much about Wisconsin basketball. It wasn't like a dream place. It wasn't who I watched. I mean, I watched the Big Ten, but I didn't really watch them outside of that. And it was one of those things. I always wanted to be a Hawkeye. Iowa State was starting to come in, and Iowa really wasn't that interested. Continued to progress going into my junior year, and had a really, really big junior summer. Went and kind of ran up the charts from like a top 200 player to a top 50 player. And then Iowa came on board, and that's really that process. So Iowa was the big one. I always wish I would have taken like a visit to Arizona, Hawaii, or all the other fun places, and still knowing that I was going to go to Iowa. But the culture, it was an easy pick for me. I mean, being from the Midwest, being from Iowa, it was a no-brainer. So.
Tell us about your relationship with Coach Alford. What was it about him and his recruiting style that got you to come to Iowa? And do you keep in touch with him much anymore?
I haven't talked to him for a long time, and that's just we all live different lives, right? I've got young kids and all over the place, so that's more of it. Once I started playing basketball overseas, he had his thing, I had my thing, and so we've kind of fallen off. I know Adam and Jeff maybe keep in contact with him a little bit more than I do. And then for Coach Alford, I had one of the big things I liked about him is I'm very, very intrinsically motivated. I don't. I love the external stuff. I love when people tell me no, but like I want to do things for myself, and he understood that. He knew how to drive that for me. And I wasn't heavily recruited, and he used that against me. He was the one that was just basically like, listen, I'm going to offer you a scholarship, and everybody's going to crucify me for it and say like this is the biggest waste of scholarship ever. And that's exactly what they did. And I love that stuff. I still have comments that were pinned up in my locker from fans saying like he will never play, like a Keegan Murray situation. Like he's a wasted scholarship. Like you've never seen what a kid can do until they get on the court, right? and I love it. And people are asking like, well, the other Murray brother must be no good. I'm like, no, just give him time, let him have an opportunity to come out and shine. And so Alford was just really good in that motivation. Very, very good at player development. And that's what I needed. It was an opportunity, and it was a perfect fit for me.
Tell us what you think about the current state of Iowa basketball. You brought up Keegan Murray, and I don't know that anybody saw that coming. That kid can play as a freshman. I can't think of a freshman that's come in that's been that athletic and just been a seamless transition for him. What's been your thoughts on this team, the way they played this year, and how far do you think, if you had to guess, how far do you think they'll go in the tournament?
Yeah, I hate that because I would have guessed somebody else would have gone a lot further than they did too. The tournament's very different, right? You can catch a team that's on fire, and it just makes it extremely hard. But they have the talent. Defense is obviously one of the things that they struggle with, and it's not so much defensively. It's when teams can pass and move and cut extremely well. That's where they run into some issues. And like if you think back to the Gonzaga game, if you think back to the Indiana distributes the ball really well, right? They catch you on an angle. They can make you in closeout situations, and that's something that they do a great job of. And they're starting to shore up some of those deficiencies. I'm seeing them close out short, but then if you get a team that's hot, it's going to run into an issue. So they have the ability on the defensive end to go deep into this. Losing Nunji hurts. I will say that it's going to put a lot more pressure on Garza. He can't get in foul trouble, and you see that on the defensive end how he plays. He's oftentimes just straight up, and he doesn't reach, he doesn't go for block shots anymore. It's just really just position defense because he has to avoid fouls.
Yeah.
Offensively, I can't think of a more potent team. Gonzaga is one, obviously, but Gonzaga and Baylor are the two teams that those three are the ones that can go, and they can outshoot anybody. And if they get going, they're going to be a team that if they get on a run with shooting the ball, they can go deep into the tournament. So everything's really predicated on that offense.
Okay. Well, right when I was thinking I was getting everything figured out with the Big Ten, then Illinois goes and thumps Michigan by a buttload the other night. Did you watch that game at all?
We had baseball practice, but I was able to catch the end of it. And yeah, it's and that's the story of the Big Ten, right? I mean, if you and it's really about who's there that night, who's shooting well, and if you're going, offensively, this conference is probably the best I've ever seen. Usually it's a very, smash mouth type defensive nature conference. And this year it's let's get up and go. And that's across the board. So they got a lot of guys that can scoot and a lot of guys that can go. So it's interesting. It's fun to watch.
Yeah, they are a lot of fun to watch. And it seems like they're getting hot right at the right time. So hopefully things can continue.
Without their best player. So yeah. That's what's really that shows a contender right there. You take away Garza from our team, I think we have a different dynamic. We can win games, but going into the number 2 in the nation and doing what they did, I don't think Iowa could do that without Garza.
Yeah, a lot of the experts I'm starting to hear, it was kind of like this at the beginning of the year, are thinking that I was going to make a major run in the tournament because, the teams that are not Big Ten teams aren't going to know how to defend him. Yep. And they're going to have a really difficult time. So I guess we can just wait and see. I was kind of taking some notes here for my bracket and just to see what you thought. So I know we mentioned real quick too. You said something about upsets. So of course we're going to talk about 06 and that was such a great team. It was the big three with you and Haleska and Horner coming in off that conference championship run, and don't think there was many hotter teams in the tournament. And we talked to Adam Haleska about this, and a lot of people didn't realize that Northwestern State team was senior heavy. They were a good team. It wasn't a team that should have been playing a 2 seed. I think absolutely not. They were way better than that. Walk us through a little bit of that game and what the feeling was, because I remember one of my major, obviously, then the heartbreaking shot was, I don't know that, and I said this to Adam too, that I've ever seen anyone play as hard in a game as I watched you play in that game. You were just the consistency from you throughout the game, you busting your butt, continually getting buckets throughout the game. You just kept keeping the game close. Walk us through as much as you can about that game.
Yeah, honestly, NCAA tournament, I averaged like 1 point, 1 rebound in the first half. It was weird. I couldn't get the ball. I couldn't get in scoring angles. I mean, it was just completely out of the flow of the game. And both against Cincinnati and against Northwestern State. And then the second half, I averaged like 20 and 12. It was just a situation where I kind of forced my hand. I had to get more involved. I mean, we were up. Plus, trust me, I would have rather gone 0-0 and won that game and gone to the next round.
You know the Cincinnati game was because Nicholas Shea from 98 Degrees was in the stands. You were focused out there.
That's the only reason. And no, the Northwestern State game, it was a really weird game. We came out hot, and then they brought it back. Then we got out ahead again, and then they got it back closer within halftime. So we knew that that's what they do. That's what they were known for. I mean, it's hard because you don't get to scout much. They had a big body, very athletic. They kind of bounce between zone and man, and what they do is they had a couple guys that spread us out, right? And one of the big issues is we had an argument before the game between Tony Freeman and Eric Hansen, and then there was a little bit of a scuffle, and something happened, and Eric was just completely out of the game mentally. He got in foul trouble early, everything. I don't know if he just got shook up or what, but he kind of struggled that game in a way. And he was so imperative to our style of play. Because, I mean, if you have a 6'11" shot blocker that just moves everything, it was just, he was awesome. And having him kind of go out, and then it was like I had to move to the 5, and then they went to a really small lineup. So then we got the game up to 16, and that's when they dropped to that small lineup. And Coach Alford took myself, Horner, and Haluska out. And we were used to pulling we were the Clydesdales pulling the cart, right? So we were used to playing 35, 36 a game. But I understand in that dynamic, you're thinking like, all right, you got a 16-point lead. You should be good to go. Let's bring these guys in. And they just got to hold and maintain. We get back in and it's 8. And we're just staring at a buzzsaw. And they've got the heat. All the momentum has shifted. And we were able to kind of play that off. And we were able to keep it at 3 or 4 for an extended period. And then I think it was a tie game, and I had the ball with about 14 seconds left, made a good move. I had an and one right before it, made a good move, got the foul, made the first free throw, made the hard free throw. And then the second free throw, they called a timeout. I remember just sitting there, I'm like, all right, you've done this your entire life, not an issue. And go in, and immediately right when I shot, I'm like, shit, I pulled that right. And I knew it and stepped up, and it hit. And so I couldn't get to it. So I remember yelling, get back, get back, get back, get back, and seeing everything. And Doug was lost in the transition. I'm seeing this whole play as it goes. It's crazy in my mind. Doug was lost on that short corner on the right side. I'm screaming, pick up, pick up, pick up. So then I run and jump to him. We both overextend. He takes a dribble and shoots, misses. Ball bounce from the left wing, right wing, ball bounces into the left corner. And then I have the vantage point into the basket. I just watch it straight up, straight down. And I'm just like, holy shit, it's in. And nothing but net. And then I made a pass to Haluska, a full court pass. And that was a quarter inch, and he makes that basket, and it was good. Yeah. And that quarter inch, that is where I wish, that one, we deserved that one. We deserved that one to go back in for us. It was just what we did, how much we prepped. We deserved to go out better than what we did on that year. So
yeah, that was a hell of a team.
I have a weird memory with games. I can walk through still a lot of the big games and kind of just see everything as it develops too. So my wife, it drives her absolutely crazy when we're watching stuff.
No, that's great. That's great for us when we're asking you questions about it. And I told Adam this too. I said I went without a cell phone for about 2 weeks after that because I was back in the flip phone days, and I smashed it up against the wall after that. And I was like, I need to go off the grid for a little bit. So I mean, it was a tough loss. As you know, you were there, but it was tough for all of us. But you bounce back from it, you move on, and it still was a great team, and, had a really great season. So it was still really fun watching you guys go on that run of the Big Ten tournament. Yeah.
And the crazy thing is it's a free throw, right? I made 2 free throws that put us in the quarterfinal of the Italian playoffs, everything, right? That's life. You miss a shot, and it still haunts me because it's always been the what if. I wish I had the ability to kind of circle back time and see what would have happened, where we would have gone, how far, right? Because we would have matched up. I think next was West Virginia, and that would have been a fun game. Pittsnoggle, they had a really good team. PNZ, that whole Hair Bear, that whole team would have been fun to play against.
When you guys played against them, I don't know if it was that season or the year before in Kansas City at the Guardians Classic. Didn't you guys match up against, was it West Virginia or Kentucky?
We had
you
Kentucky
played Rondo in Kentucky. I was at that
Rondo
game.
in Texas. Yep, we had Kentucky in them.
Okay, that's right. Okay, and then you guys beat Rondo and Kentucky in that game, if I remember right.
Right. Yep. They didn't have Chuck Hayes, and they were supposed to be a top 4 team. Yeah, we ended up upsetting them there, and that was kind of that cemented us as a pretty good basketball team. And they ended up not having a great year, if I remember right, that year. And then we ran into Texas, and where Texas was just phenomenal with Marcus Aldridge and that team, and we had beat them in the year before in Maui, and they were not going to let us win that one again. So
you want to talk about?
Yeah, that was right, my junior year. Yeah.
You want to talk about harassment? Talk about me getting tickets from a scalper and getting put right in the middle of the Kentucky season ticket holder section, and all of the 65-year-old plus women yelling at you. You stink, Bruno. They kept calling you Bruno. Bruno, you stink. And then every time I would cheer and go crazy, like they'd look back at me and they'd be like, "Oh, he's awful. He's awful." Those old women were nasty during that game. They wanted to kill me.
Was Ashley Judd there at that time, or maybe she only went to the NCAA tournament? So
I don't know. She wasn't sitting by me, but when they brought the Kentucky players in, they sat right off to the side, and I was actually sitting right next to Rondo, and that was right before he really started to blow up and become a big name. So I didn't really know that I was sitting next to a future NBA first round pick at that point.
Yeah. Fun story about Ashley Judd is we were in Czech Republic. I was playing with the Swiss national team, and she was doing a film over there, or a TV show. And we're in this tiny hotel in the country, everything, because we had to stay an extended period, so they put us out there. And I'm sitting down in the lobby, and she walks by, and I'm like, "Holy shit, that's Ashley Judd!" And so we start talking and everything, and there was another American player that was on the Swiss national team too, that was just lived in Switzerland since he was a kid, and started talking to her. And she's like, "Oh, so where are you from?" I'm like, "Iowa." And she's like, "Oh, I'm a huge Kentucky fan." And this is probably, 2010 or 11. She's like, "I'm a huge Kentucky fan, and I think they're having a good year." I'm like, "Yeah, we played Kentucky once." She's like, "Did you guys win?" I'm like, "Yep, we did." And I talked to her about her being in the NCAA tournament, and she said something like, Iowa. There was a big bald guy I hated there." And I'm like, "Yeah, that was probably me." And so it was, we had a good conversation around that. But yeah, Ashley Judd was a big staple for them, I guess.
I asked Haleska about this when you guys went to Ames, and one of the first time he went back after he transferred, and they were just letting you guys have it, like yelling at you guys, and you were getting the Rogaine chants there. How was that something that like fueled you and pissed you off, or was that something that you just zone out and weren't even like paying attention to?
That stuff doesn't bother me. Like my wife's always like, I mean, we haven't been married how many years, and she's like, "I say anything to you, and it really doesn't bother you." I'm like, I've been yelled at my entire life by every coach and every opposing fan. There was one fan there, and he kept yelling Prozac, Prozac, Prozac. And I finally look at him, I go, "Are you an idiot? Like, that's not even the right, like, Prozac," because was Prozac the antidepressant?
I think so. I can't remember for sure.
For hair, right? Propecia is for hair. Like that. I look at him like, "I think you're telling me that am I depressed, or are you trying to make fun of me because I have hair?" And he looks at me, and he's like, "You're right." And he kind of just walks away, and all of his buddies start making fun of him. And I don't, that stuff doesn't mind. The best one I had was at Michigan, and I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on this one. So
you can say whatever you want.
Okay. I was starting to check in as a freshman, and Sean Steinletter was on the court, and I don't look, I'm watching the game because we're in the game, and playing on that court, growing up, watching the Fab Four, all that stuff. Like that was my first time ever getting to play on it. It was like heart beating. I'm going out for the first time. I'm like, 44 for 53. What? 44 for 53. What? Because their students are right behind this, right? Like their students are right behind the bench. And I go, 44 for 53. And their fan points me right directly in the face to the kid. He goes, "I got you, you fucker." And everybody on the whole the scores table, they all start busting out laughing. I look and I turn bright red. I start laughing, and Alford's screaming at me. He's like, "Are you ready to go in the game?" I'm like, "I can't tell you this story right now because
Yeah.
it was one of those ones where I found it comical. And so
Wow.
some of them are pretty creative.
What a
So
shithead. I would not
yeah,
expect something like that to
yeah.
happen when you're getting
Oh,
ready to check in a game.
it happens. It happened all the time. So that was one of my funny stories around that.
Oh, that's a good one though. I never would have guessed that happened. Um, Something that we wanted to talk to you about too. Not funny at all. The effects of what happened with Pierce in the basketball program while you were there. Can you kind of walk us through how difficult that was for you guys as teammates to take a lot of the brunt of that and have to really step up and rebuild the reputation of the Iowa basketball program and heal that relationship with the women's basketball team?
Yeah. So first and foremost, I'm going to say this: like, there's nothing that we did on our team that ever comes close to like what the women's program had to go through, right? So I'm gonna always say that first. They had a lot more that they had to deal with than us. Like, we had a reputation that was tarnished, right? They had emotional, like, there's a lot of things that happened within that program, right? So that kudos to them. I have a great relationship with Coach Bluter. Everything. And I'm going to talk about this, but the focus is really on what happened over there and how they overcame that, right? And so from like our end, it was tough, right? I was friends with all the girls, the ladies, excuse me. I was very close with Coach Bluter, still I am right now, right? And it just, like, their locker room was right across the hall, and there was a clear delineation, right? And not being able to be part of that, and knowing that we are segregated because of this situation was hard, right? Because I have a mother, I have a sister, I have a daughter now. It was just it was very unique situation to kind of have to tiptoe in a way. And coming in that as a freshman and having that distraction, and then having some of the other stuff that happened, in which I wanted to come in and redshirt, learn and grow as a player. And it's like, you're going to start at the 3 just because of some idiotic choices that were made across the team. And it was eye-opening in a way, right? It was immediately kind of, what did I step into, right? And so that, and then kind of rebuilt that situation, was able to slowly, once we got control, like our junior and senior year, we were able to replayer some of those relationships with the women's program, and trying to get the focus off of what that was and onto what we're trying to build. And that was really the main energy. And I mean, the advantage that we had that helped with that is that we had the majority of the kids were Iowa kids on our team. I think on the team at one time we had nine kids from Iowa, and that just showed that, like, that's the wholesome Iowa attack that we had. That's what our focus was. But still, it's my time there. It's always going to have a blemish of that. And I worked my tail off from, I don't know how old, 5th grade. I dedicated my life to go play collegiate basketball and beyond. I didn't think about pros. I wanted to play college basketball. That's what I always said. And to have that as, like, it's one of the 2 things that are always brought up, right? To me, it's Northwestern State or the Pierce sagas. And not like, hey, you took a bunch of Iowa kids, you should have got first in the Big Ten, and you had to let 2 stupid games go at the end of the season, got second, and you win a Big Ten championship. And it's those 2 things that are not most things that we're known for, and that sucks, because we did do a lot with the talent that we had, and building that program back up from where it was.
I can definitely tell you from a fan perspective, and talking to other Iowa fans, that's not necessarily fully what you guys are known for. It's definitely a blemish. It's not something that the rest of you guys are lumped in with. It's something that a lot of teams have players that kind of go rogue and do something like that. But you guys are really known for your hot run through the Big Ten tournament, and that the big 3, like we talked about, that you guys had, and the success that you had, and then the heartbreaking a loss in the NCAA tournament. But I think I speak for 99% of Hawkeye fans, when we will look back and we talk about Greg Brunner, Adam Haleska, and Jeff Horner, it's all positive.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. I mean, and that's what, I mean, the focal point is that the reason I love those two so much is that it was never one of us. It was the team. And that's what we wanted. We pushed those guys as hard as we could. We pushed each other as hard as we could to be successful. And the talent that we had, it was there. And that was the focal point. It's like, how much can we own? I mean, once we got control of that leadership from like our junior year on, our focus was taking it from where it was as a program with a little bit less rigor, I would say, and reorganizing how we come together. So, and Adam was a huge part of that. Jeff was a huge part of that. And I mean, honestly, the whole team it was a huge shift in how we think about what we need to do. We're not there. We don't like to be basketball players. We were basketball players. A lot of people, you can tell that they like the thought of being a basketball player and getting the accolades and going out and having all the girls chase after them and all that stuff. But we were there we would fight each other in practice. That's how bad we wanted to win. So,
yeah. Well, you brought up a really interesting point too about all of the guys that were from Iowa on the team. And that's something I wanted to ask you about. The two of the distinct differences that have really evolved over the last 10, 15, 20 years between Iowa State and Iowa is Iowa really focuses on getting that in-state talent. Iowa high school basketball is strong. And, Iowa State University has really, focused their attention on JUCOs, transfers, and, out-of-state talent. From your perspective, why would you think, and I'm not expecting a magic answer or anything like that, but just from your opinion, why do you think things panned out like that?
I mean, even look at Drake and UNI. I mean, look what they're doing with the Iowa kids. There is some like surrounding states, everything. But I mean, if you collectively look at what they're pulling in, it's the Midwest, and they're doing a phenomenal job, right, with that too, right? I don't know, because I would say that trend started even before. Like I think they had Holman there. They didn't have a lot of players Stinson still lives in Iowa, and his son is. I've heard really a lot of good things about his son too. And if he's anything like a pit bull of his dad, it's going to be interesting to see how he pans out. But like Holman and I'm trying to think of any other. I mean, Iowa kids that were there even when I played. So it's always kind of been that I guess outward look and try to pull in. I know when Eustacia was there, a lot of the Iowa kids that played didn't want to play that style, right? It was I think Kaleska said they never practiced offense. All they did is run and play defense, and just throw the ball at the basket because they were going to out rebound and they're going to beat the crap out of everybody, right? And that's fun and everything, and that was just always his style. But I mean, that's not normal. All the Iowa kids want to do that, right? So I don't have a magic bullet. I know Jake Sullivan's taking a beating right now because he's asking that question too. And I would like to see more kids from Iowa at Iowa State. I don't want us to see the kid that went to Marquette. I can't think of his name off the top of my head. From what is this? The old point guard.
I can't remember his name either.
Yeah. And I would like to eliminate as much leakage out of this state as we possibly can, because as I've gotten older, I'm a diehard Hawkeye, but I want the state of Iowa to be represented well. Like having UNI and having Drake and having Iowa State have good programs, that speaks volumes on what we're doing within internal, right? Like we're developing kids, because when we came out, we weren't a hotbed. I mean, we had 31 Division I players out of my senior class, right? We had a huge Division I, and then you think of Heinrich and Collison, then Rafe before that, and then you had Harrison Barnes and McDermott. Like, we got to get that going. We want to be a pipeline. Like Indiana used to be this old pipeline of basketball, and I think Iowa has just the same capabilities of what it is, because it's based around fundamentals. So I hope we can continue that path.
Just think how good we would be over the years if we would have kept all those guys
right.
in an Iowa uniform. And there's one guy that we can blame for most of that's Roy Williams.
Right.
Send him some hate letters.
Yeah.
I'm totally kidding. But yeah, it was good. I feel like we're finally getting control of that, and keeping a lot more of those guys in. But Roy, he had the corner on the Iowa high school kids. Whenever we get a great player, he'd pull them either to Kansas and then out to North Carolina. And, those are two programs that are tough to say no to. So
Yeah.
I completely understand that. Going next off of that, want to talk about your pro career, because I don't know how many Iowa fans know how successful and long of a pro career that you had. I think that you moved something like 19 times. Like, it was like an insane amount. Like, I hope you give your wife flowers every day, man. Like, that's a lot. That's a lot of moving. You could tell us about some of your favorite places that you played, and what are some of the most memorable accomplishments that you had playing overseas?
Yeah, I was a mercenary, that's for sure. I was direct to hire. I would go. So honestly, I chose my countries playing by beer and wine. First 2 years in Belgium, I loved the beer, and then went to Italy after that, focusing on wine.
All right.
And I had a small stint in Israel too, so I do have to say that. And that is one of the most beautiful countries I've ever been to in my life. The food's amazing, the weather's awesome. I hated the basketball just because I'm a team basketball player, and it was more one-on-one. So
yeah,
it just didn't fit me. I think it's phenomenal basketball, high-level basketball. It just didn't fit my style, and I didn't think I could be successful in that location very well. Yeah, so unique career, right? So won the World's University Games with the USA team when I was 22. And then was able to participate with the Swiss national team also. So because I didn't participate as a professional and qualified for the Olympics, I guess it would have been in that aspect. We didn't qualify. We missed the cut. But so I was able to kind of play for two countries. So that was a kind of a cool thing. Both sides of my family from Switzerland. I had to present to the government. I had to get sponsors, people that would sponsor me and say, like, here's my citizenship, here's the lineage, here's everything. I spoke Italian. I had to present in Italian to the government. I didn't speak high German. I had a little bit of German in high school. So my grandmother spoke German. It was just a situation where I was more fluent in Italian living in there for 6 years. So I was able to acquire that citizenship. So that was very unique and fun. So now, like, myself, my kids will all have Swiss dual citizenship. Cool. And was able to play for them for 4 years. And one of the funnest memories I had was we upset Russia. It was myself and Clint Capella, who plays for the Rockets. Him and I were on the same team. He was 19 at the time, hadn't been drafted yet. So it was like, I got to spend some time with him, coach him up, talk to him a little bit about like where he could go. And then the first day of practice, I threw a ball up in the air like a shot. It was a lob to him, and I've never seen somebody go up and get the ball and dunk it. And I'm like, I'm going to have so much fun with this stuff. So we played Russia, and they had Timothy Mozgov. They had a bunch of guys that played in the NBA. And Switzerland it's getting a lot better in basketball, but it wasn't known to be a powerhouse. And we had them down 22. And it was one of those games where they clawed back and ended up hitting the three and making free throws down the stretch. I think I scored 9 in the last minute and a half to win the game, and we upset them. And then the next day, we're supposed to play Italy. So we were qualifying for FIBA, the World Games, and we're supposed to play Italy like 2 days later. And all we had to do was win one more game, and we would have qualified. And then the first time they ever qualified. The next day, I went up for a shot in a non-contact practice. It was against a mock 2-3 zone, and a guy hit my arm and just snapped. Like, he hit it hard enough, it just pulled back, and it snapped everything in my shoulder. So that was the end of my career on a non-contact practice. And I laugh about it because, one, I was getting close to being done anyways. But, like, of all the abuse I have had and all the hard hits I've had and given, like, that was the one that really kind of ended my career. It was just mind-numbing to me. So that was my stint with Switzerland. Like I said, I played in Belgium, played 2 years there. The first year there was very unique for me. I was dating a girl back in Iowa, and had never really been anywhere outside of my bubble of Iowa. I get dropped off in the French part of Belgium. Nobody speaks English, and they're like, "All right, see you at practice." And I could drive a stick because I grew up as a farm kid, but not very well because I hadn't driven for a long time. And it's like, all right, here's your car. It's a stick. Nobody speaks English. You're used to going to bed going to bed at basically like 1 PM of their time.
Oh, wow.
So figure that out, and then we'll see you at practice. And you have 4-hour practice tonight. So I remember trying to like have 8 hours of practice, getting an hour and a half of sleep, like crying myself to sleep because I'm 23 years old in a foreign country. I don't know anybody. None of the other Americans are there. I'm miserable. And then slowly, just over the course of the time, just assimilating into the culture, loving it, and then growing to just be part of it. Right.
Yeah.
And then when I got to Italy, it was an entirely different story. Like obviously living in Italy for 6 years, speaking the language, getting to love the people, the culture, the food, the basketball. I was able to stay and play in some high level teams in that area just because there, in Europe, if you play with that tenacity and the toughness and the grit and diving on the floor, playing with emotion, they love you. And I pissed a lot of people off on the other teams, but then I was always like, oh, well, the moment I come on their team, they're like, oh, we love you. Oh, Brunner, ci sei mio ragazzo, and all this different stuff. And I was like their best friend the moment I went and played for them. But then it was fun. So very, very unique career. Got to win a lot of cool things. Played a lot of really good basketball players. Some great big events, great big opportunities, really.
Did you ever think about possibly staying in somewhere like a France and being like, I love it here, I think I'm going to stay here for good? Or did you always have plans to get back to the U.S.?
We talked about like now, like in the winter, I think like, why the hell did I ever leave the Mediterranean? Like I say it every single year. Like I was getting paid a lot of money. I was playing a game. I took 3-hour naps in the afternoon. I played Xbox like an hour and a half, 2 hours a day. And like I sat and I had a coffee every morning with this old Italian guy, and we would sit there and just talk about, like, he'd tell me stories about the past, and my life was not hard, and like I hated it. Like I didn't. At the end, it's like 100-hour weeks. You're traveling all the time. You're away from everybody you love. That adds up, right? But
yeah,
still, it's always like the grass isn't always greener on the other side. Because now I go into a corporate life. I'm like, I don't get to hit people 5 times in a game when I'm upset. Like in a basketball, I could hit you. I raise my hand. I'm like, guess what? I got 4 more of them coming too. And in corporate, it's like, yep, it's just one of those unique environments, right? Like it took me a while to adjust, and now I love the life of corporate too. So it's just kind of I've moved on. I'm happy to be back in Iowa. I'm going to raise my kids close to my family, and that's what it's really about. Like I couldn't pick a better place to raise my kids, to be honest with you.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about what you're doing right now for a career, and a little bit about your family.
Yeah, I've got 3 kids. I got a 9-year-old, a 5-year-old. I have a 9 and 5-year-old boy, and then I have a 4-year-old daughter. We live in Norwalk, Iowa. We live on Echo Valley Golf Course down there. So I play a lot of golf, and you'd think I'd get better, but I'm terrible. I have a high handicap, so I definitely win a lot of the awards at the end of the thing because my handicap is I get a lot of birdies and I get a lot of 8s. So we'll just say that I hit the ball far. So that's what I do a lot, is just chase the kids around. I work at Principal Financial. I'm in data. So I'm an assistant director in data right now. I'm getting a double master's. I have my MBA. I just finished that. And I have 2 more classes for my master's in analytics. So I've kind of given up that athlete card and turned into a mathlete. Yeah. So honestly, it's I try to spend as much time with the kids, chasing them around. We're getting in that phase of sports. And I'm not a big proponent of like going out and playing all these games. I'm more of the fundamental skill stuff. So I do a lot of stuff with younger kids. I have like a preschool and kindergarten group that like where my kids are in that class. I bring them in, and boys and girls, and we do fundamentals on Saturday mornings. I think I charge $1 a session, maybe even 75 cents a session. And that's just to pay for insurance and pay for somebody to monitor the building. Like I don't ask for anything on that.
Yeah.
And then we have a pretty good basketball team. I work with a lot of, we've got about 55 kids that we work with across our 2nd and 3rd grade class, my oldest ones. And we do fundamentals with them. And we have a couple teams within that too.
Well, that's awesome. I grew up in Norwalk till about 3rd grade. So
okay.
Yeah, I know the area, and it's really grown a ton. It's nothing like it was back when I was there.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting when we start getting some businesses here too. I mean, it's starting to grow a lot in that capacity too. So
what ended up bringing you to Norwalk of all places?
Yeah, I was driving around Des Moines. Gosh, it was 2010. We had just gotten married. My wife was pregnant. I was going to be going overseas, and I said, I'm sick of Iowa City because all we do when we are there is just go out. And
yeah,
I'm starting to play more golf, and looked around to see what golf courses we could live on. And it was here, and it was Adele. And Norwalk had like 5 golf courses within like 3 miles of where I lived. And I had all the summers off, right? So we ended up, it was just one of those situations. We joined right when we moved over and moved on to Legacy, and then now we live over at Echo. So
all right, that sounds pretty awesome. Getting a lot of golf in, so you can't.
Well, last year with COVID, I played the most I've ever played, and I think it made me worse. So
that's the way I am. The more I play, the worse I get. And I always say there's that window. I don't know how serious of a golfer you are, but somewhere like after like the third beer and like in the third beer and then the sixth beer, in between there is my sweet spot. And then before that and after that, I'm terrible.
Yeah. There's that. Yeah. My thresholds are maybe a little bit higher than that. But definitely hit a plateau, and then it's just a straight little drop off after that. So
I usually do with the mixed drinks then instead of the beers too. So it's always it makes it fun just being outside and getting to socialize and have drinks. Wanted to finish up asking you. We asked Haleska the same thing, and he's like, that'd never happen. So Horner having a pretty good coaching career, and you know what I'm going to ask you. And he gets a big job somewhere, and he busts out the phone, gets on like a 3-way call. You guys are all on the bat phone, and he's like, boys, we're getting the band back together. I need 2 assistants to come help me coach. I need to get the trio back together. What are you saying?
So Jeff he already gave me an ultimatum one time. When he went down to Truman State, we had talked, and he had wanted me to come down, and we were just at a different spot in our life at that time, right, with 3 young kids. So I was still heavily in school, and I just said, Jeff, I can't do it right now. And then immediately his joke was, well, when I get my big job, don't expect a call from me. So I honestly, I'm so passionate about basketball. I'm so passionate about helping kids get better and doing it the right way that if he said, which he never would, I would love to do that. We have very similar minds about basketball. We fight all the time about it, but we have very similar minds, like how to build the right program, everything, and what's that based off of. But yeah, him and I on the same coaching staff, it would be interesting in a locker room. I understand the whole capacity of a person or the superiority aspect of it. So never in front of the team, but we would have some arguments and some fights in a film session. That's for sure. When it's just him and I, if we ever coach together. But he is such a good basketball mind. He always has been. I have an analytical mind thinking. So like I'm always like constantly looking at things at 1,000 different directions. So I always pissed him off back in the day, because I'd be like, well, what about this? What about this? And he'd be like, no, we're doing it this way. And I'm like, fine, we'll do it that way. But what about this? And so he's definitely one of my all-time favorites. And I think he's going to have a really, really big and successful career, because he's already proven that he can coach at Truman State, right? He's helped turn that program around. And I wish him and his family the best, and I just need him to answer a phone call. If you can get him to answer a phone call, that would be nice, because I can't. I went down to spend a week with him when he was battling cancer, but I can't. All of a sudden, he doesn't answer any calls for me anymore. So
we tried calling him too and left him a voicemail, but I'm still waiting by the phone, Jeff.
Yeah.
Never called me back either.
Yeah,
and you're way higher on the list than I am.
Well, I'll just call his wife, and then she'll yell at him, and then he'll get mad at me even more. So that's usually what happens. So.
We figured we'd just try him after basketball season. Maybe we'd have better luck then.
Yeah.
So, all right, Greg. Hey, man, I know you got to get back to the family, but just wanted to sincerely thank you for coming on with us at Nebraska Hawks Nest. We're always going to be huge Greg Brunner fans. And, like you said, I hate to hear you say, like, man, my name doesn't mean anything anymore, because with Hawkeye fans, it'll always mean something. And we're really proud of the years you spent as a Hawkeye in the basketball team and everything that you accomplished. And, thanks again for taking time out of your busy schedule to sit down and reminisce for a little while.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I appreciate it. I know I joke around about it. It was a lifetime dream, and like I told Nick Bear after he graduated, I'm going to say the same thing to Bohannon. You get the fun fact. It really gets a lot more cool once you are done. And you get to take a step back. While you're in it, it's hard, right? You're only thinking about what's going on in it. But like I watched all these guys that came up through this that looked like me, that talked like me, that were from similar sized cities that were me. And I wanted to be that. And what they're doing now is like Garza, Murray, Bohannon, Frederick, all these guys are my kids now want to be them. And I don't think that's the legacy that I love about Iowa, because like if you when you talk to me about Iowa State, like that's what I think that they're missing, is that all these boys are growing up right now, and girls from the women's program too, right? I mean, let's not even talk about Kayla Clark, right?
Yeah.
And everything that all the people that they have there, they're looking at these young men or men and saying like, I idolize it. This is what I want to do the rest of my life. And that's the window, and that's the path. You get a step back, and this is the way, as the Mandalorian would say. Like that's what makes Iowa program really, 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 really unique and really cool.
I had to tell you this before I let you go too, because you just made me think of the coolest story, and I'd kick myself if I didn't tell you this. But I got to meet Adam Woodbury one time, and I asked him, I said, with you getting recruited by North Carolina so heavily, you had a tough decision, because he had a really close relationship with Roy Williams. And I asked him what it was that really made him decide to go to Iowa. And he's like, well, my dad asked me one time, he said, think about where your heart and your emotion is. And he said that your team, your senior year, is what came into his mind, and the journey that you guys had through the Big Ten tournament, and then you losing to Northwestern State. And he said he shed tears, which a lot of us did after that. And he said that was when that moment hit him in his mind, talking to his dad, is when he was like, yeah, I want to be a Hawkeye, because that's where my heart is. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yep. And I hope none of the kids this age know anything about me. My kids, like they have zero idea that I even played or all that stuff. Like they don't know anything about what I did at Iowa and all that stuff. But my favorite thing is I'm outside and all I hear is, I'm Luka Garza. No, I'm Garza. I'm CJ. And I'm just like, this is what it's about. Like, I don't think people realize like that is enough right there. That feeling and having that inspiration and setting that, like I told Nick, I said, hey, your time's here is done, but what you've done is you've pushed an entire generation to be you, and that's what it's about. So that's what's cool. That's why I love Iowa basketball and the history of it. So
that's why everyone's proud to be a Hawkeye and proud to be an Iowan. It's that Iowa pride right there.
Right, absolutely.
All right, Greg. Thanks again, man, and appreciate you taking time away from your busy schedule, like I said, to come on. And always got to end it with a Go Hawks.
Yep, go Hawks. Hey, and let's let these guys finish out the right way. Let's stand behind them. I appreciate them.
All right. Yeah, definitely. I think I'm looking forward to seeing what these guys can do.
Thanks.
All right. See you, Greg.
Yeah. Bye-bye.